Hi, welcome to PeopleTools Tech Tips. I'm Randall Groncki. Today we're going to talk about PSQuery security, roles, permission lists, and query security trees, and how we find out that information of how it all went together. My implementation, like yours, we use a lot of queries and a lot of records inside of our queries. The questions always come up from our query security administrators: who has access to this record and how? Also, is a user can't see a query because they don't have access to the record, so they're asking us, what role do we need to give this user so they can see the query? Well, finding all through that is usually going down several rabbit holes because the user is attached to roles, roles are attached to permission lists. Permission lists through the query tab are attached to one or more several different query security trees at different branches inside the tree. And of course, records appear on the branches inside the tree. So there's literally a many-to-many situation where a user can or cannot get access to a role. And sometimes we have the opposite side of the question is a user has access to a record and they shouldn't, and the administrators want to ask us why. Where are they getting access to this record through with the security? So it's rather complicated. What I did in my implementation, and maybe it'll help you in your implementation too, is to create a view that looks at the relationship between permission lists, the query security trees, and the records, and the path all the way through, including the query security tree branch path to the record. Now, we know that a record can appear on many different query security trees. A query security tree can appear in many different permission lists, and a permission list can appear in many different roles. And just to make it more interesting, a record can appear on a query security tree more than once at different nodes. So this view aims to expose that. Now, we've built several queries on top of that view to expose what records does a user have access to, what roles has access to a record, given a record, what permission list or role or users have access to that. These are all questions we routinely get, and this would make it easier to answer those questions. Now, before recreating all these, remember, all these are available on PeopleToolsTechTips.com as a PeopleTools Project 860 at this point. All right. Also, look at my blog post at PeopleToolsTechTips.com, and we'll have this SQL to just do this through either Toad or SQL Developer or another SQL tool of your choice. Warning granted, the SQL I'm creating here is Oracle-based SQL. So whether it works on IBM, DB2, or other supported databases, I can't give you that. However, if you have those other types of databases, maybe you can use the core of the code to then rewrite it in those database-specific syntax and make it work for you. And hey, if you do, send back to me, and maybe we can make it available to other users too. All this, again, is out in our GitHub situation. So anyway, while I'm going to quit the shop here today and go in and start looking at this, please have a look, and we're going to walk through each one of these queries to see how our query administrators can determine the relationships between these records, the user's permission list and roles in the trees, and hopefully it clarifies them and makes their implementation a little bit clearer.
Okay, if you upload the project inside your demo or dev environment, you'll end up with 5 queries in one view. We named them all after what they're looking for. What records can a permission list see? What permission list can see which query records? What roles can see a query record? What users can see a query rec? And what records can a user see? These are our main questions we get from our query security administrators as far as what records can anybody see through permission list, roles, or vice versa. What records can a permission list see? Get into it, and there's a query. We'll just run it real quick, and we'll do our small permission list, make it easier. And here you see permission list, the record, and the path through which tree, which access group, which branch in the tree it jumps into, and then the path through to the actual record. So you can see how, and sometimes multiple times, they're there. Let's go get our second one. What permission list can see a query record? Run that. All the permission lists that are seeing this record through what tree, through what path on the tree. And our third one was what roles can a query rec see? And we'll do our role the same name as our permission list. And here you go. This role you can see these records. Now, if you want more detail, you can add your class ID for permission list in there too, but that gets a little bit wound up. But this role can see these records, and these are the paths through those trees to see them. The fourth one, what users can see a query rec. So let's just run this one. This is your user. This is a role, and you can see what all recs they can see, and the path through the trees to get there. And finally, our last one, what recs can a user see? Given a user, what roles, records can they actually see, and how are they getting that access? So those are our 5 queries, and those answer most of the questions. If you need to alter them, alter them. So here's our project that you can get either from GitHub or PeopleTools Tech Tips with all the objects you need to make these queries work, including the core record that they need. So this is our core record, and basically you have your rec name, your description, your class, the tree, and all that stuff. And where it works out in the background, basically this area right here, recursively getting the path through the tree to the record, and then hooking that up with the access path given in the permission list of the tree. There's the child table to the permission list, and that has the access path. That ties the two together, and we see, okay, where are these two hooked together, and how can we get this permission list through this path? And that's the core of the SQL right there. Now, I've included SQL for all these objects in there just to run the SQL. If you don't want to run them as a PS query, you just want to run them from either code or SQL Developer or something else. Remember, these are all in Oracle SQL. Again, the core is this part right here, looking through the tree node table and recursively putting together the path to that record through the parent, and then connecting it through into the security access group record that connects permission list with the tree and the tree with the record. And then, of course, that if we have the permission list, we can get the role through the role class, and then the role user if we want the actual user attached to that permission. We want to looking for an individual. And this is where you would, always at the end, this is where you put in your parameter, you change it, put your user in here, and the different SQL would be permission list or role or record. And you can see by running it, this user has access to that record name through this tree. And this is where that permission list drops into the tree. And here's the path through that tree to the record. And the access is Y. Remember, we can get all these objects and code back here at PeopleToolsTechTips.com. And also our GitHub site, GitHub/PeopleToolsTechTips.
So that's it. Again, all these objects are available on our GitHub site, PeopleTools Tech Tips, and out on our blog site, PeopleToolsTechTips.com. Take them, use them in your implementation, upload them in your dev or demo environment, and then change them the way you need them, and hopefully use them in your environment to better inform your query administrators on the situation with their PSQuery security. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing to our channel, and we'll see you next time here on PeopleTools Tech Tips. Yes, and it's hot here out in the shop. It's September 3rd in Northern Virginia, and the current temperature is around 94 on the Labor Day holiday. I hope all of you are having a fantastic week wherever you may be. We'll see you soon.